We are back on Morning Line. Our guest with us this morning, Metro Vice Mayor Jim Shulman. It's always good to have him on. It's a pleasure. And we've got some phone calls. We've got a lot of things to talk about. By the way, there's a council meeting tonight. You said busy agenda, right?
Yeah, it's. I think it's 41 pages long. We have a public hearing tonight, so that's going to take a while. I looked at the agenda. There's, I mean, sometimes, you know, you look at an agenda, it's like, oh, that's a big deal, that's a big deal. There's some stuff on there, but nothing I think that would be considered so major that is going to draw a lot of attention. We just passed the budget at the last meeting. Typically, Nick, during the, after we pass the budget, for the next couple of meetings, things kind of quiet down because it took so long to get that budget passed. So, long agenda, we'll be there for a while. But nothing in particular stood out in terms of anything going on.
All right, we may touch on some other things, though, in a moment, Fair Board and along those lines. But, hey, we have Reverend Enoch Fuzz is joining us this morning. Reverend Fuzz, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Nick, I'm doing good. I'm having an update, so feel good. Hello, Mayor Jim.
Hello, Pastor Fuzz.
I got a question. I say leaders ought to reply to this. It's something that's really hurt people in this city. So, Mayor Shulman, what's your response? What do you think about the trial last week? Officer Delkey was his name, and the Hambrick family reaction. What would you say to people of the city about the outcome of that?
Hey, Reverend Fuzz, before I let him respond, because we were going to talk on that, can I ask you what you thought of it?
Well, I've heard a lot of people say, not a lot of people, but some people say that it should have gone to trial. I spoke with the lawyer, and there are people who felt like that it should have gone to trial. But I want to say this. I think that it's really important that General Funk, people should consider that he even asked for a prosecution of his officer. That's never happened in the history of Nashville. So that's a big step. It's kind of historic that this officer will go to jail. I'm disappointed at how much of this stuff happens all around the country that we never hear about. And we see so much of it that we're hearing about now because of cell phone videos. So I can't imagine how much of this is happening still that we don't hear about. And we have to stop it. I remember Chief Anderson saying to me, Reverend, we train our officers not to shoot. We tell them to get out of the way. This was a place where you could have gotten out of the way and called the Army, Air Force, and Navy and said, hey, we got a guy who's running. We got to go get him. And I think you could have went and got it. So I'm really disappointed that it even happened. And I'm not sure about, I think it would have been a hung jury, but who am I to say that? So those are my thoughts. But General Funk has done some things. The biggest disappointment was the family saying we want to make sure he's never elected. And when you have Mayor Shulman do one or two things that you don't agree with, I'm not going to get rid of him as the vice mayor. I'll probably still make him the mayor or something because that's the 85. I can't expect every politician to agree with me. But I want the vice mayor to make sure he agrees with me on his response to this outcome the other day.
All right. Reverend Fuzz, thank you for calling. And as always, it's good hearing from you. You take care of yourself. I'm going to call you later today. I'd like to talk to you some more. But he's such a reasoned individual. The way he laid that out just now, I mean, because there are some strong emotions behind that decision. If you're wondering, folks, you know, it was Officer Delkey was scheduled to go on trial starting today, actually. You know, and the idea of this, actually not starting today. Today was going to be the beginning of jury selection. And next week was going to be the trial, charged with the shooting death 3 years ago of Daniel Hambrick, and they reached a plea deal late last week. And some very strong feelings on both sides. The Hambrick family, Vicki Hambrick, very upset. You saw how it played out in court. And you don't minimize the feeling of a mother who lost her son. And on the other side, Glenn Funk saying, hey, this is the first time we have an officer serving time, but he went from basically first-degree murder to voluntary manslaughter and will likely serve little more than 15 months behind bars when it's all said and done. So anyway, your take on how that kind of played out. And I thought, as always, Reverend Fuzz, very reasoned in his thinking.
Yeah, and I agree, I think, with what Pastor Fuzz said, and I think you reasoned thinking it out. So this isn't a shed. I mean, we're all part of Metro government, but obviously this is something that's played out through the legal system.
Yeah.
Metro Council doesn't have any say in it. Mayor doesn't have any say in it. So it has to be determined by the prosecutors as to what was going on. We don't know, and we may never know all the facts behind this. I don't know what went into the thinking. I understand the concerns of the Hambrick family. I mean, you never want this to happen. I mean, and I think Pastor Fuzz is right. We see too many instances of this stuff going on all over the country. And all of a sudden it happened here.
Well, you know, the city did settle with the Hambrick family in a civil suit, okay?
Right, but it doesn't take care of, I mean,
of course not. It's not the criminal. It's not the
Right.
same thing. But there was a settlement there with them civilly.
Right.
And, you know, so that was taken care of. But I think, you know, the Reverend makes an interesting point. And keep in mind, one key thing that developed as we approached this trial was that Tory Johnson, the former district attorney, was going to testify for the defense. And in so many words, I think he was going to make it clear, had he been DA, he likely would not have brought charges against Delkey. And so a lot of people right now who are very frustrated from the Hambrick side, and I understand this with Glenn Funk for not following through with the trial, even though Glenn Funk did get a sentence for Delkey, need to realize that had Tory Johnson been DA, and of course he did not run for re-election, Delkey likely never would have been charged. At least Glenn Funk did charge him. But I guess in his explanation, in his mind, I think he felt that, and a lot of people felt that the odds were, like you said, there was going to be a hung jury that would drag this on, and ultimately they were able to reach an agreement with David Rabin and Andrew Delkey on a plea deal.
This was not, nobody was going to be happy with whatever happened. I mean, so, you know, you play these things out, you have a trial, hung jury, not good for the city, for the whole situation. We have to do it again. We drag this thing out. Again, we don't know what the evidence showed. I know that somebody was killed. And I know a young officer was involved. This is horrible for all parties. It's just a horrible situation. And you know, whatever came out of all this was not going to be, somebody was not going to be, people were going to be left not happy. It's just a horrible situation again.
And you're not sure it's over.
Well, I'm not sure it's over. I mean, you know, well, I think the case is over. I mean,
the judge signed off on the plea deal.
judge signed off on it. But I think feelings are still raw.
Sure.
And I'm not sure if we've heard the end of it. I think what we want are cooler heads to prevail. I mean, look at what's happened in this country over the last year and a half in terms of much more focus on equity, inclusion, diversity, police reform. It may not go as far as some people want or as quickly as some people want, but there's discussions going on. How do we take what's really a very bad situation and try to get something better out of it? How do we improve community relationships between the police and all populations? How do we make things work better? I mean, we go from, you know, a Christmas bombing where we had 6 police officers save people's lives to now, you know, people yelling at the police again or whatever. We need to heal. And Nick, I mean, and I don't mean to take so long on this, but I think we need to heal all across the country on all kinds of different things. Look at this country right now. I mean, it's so different from when we grew up.
Sure.
It is so divided. It is, you know, we have people, politicians, and this includes us on a local level. You know, we need to figure out ways to work together better, because despite what everybody may say, we're all Americans and we're all in this together, and we got to figure out how we start working together. It makes the country work so much better. In this situation, I know people are upset. Again, we don't know all the facts. How do we go from here?
Yeah.
And
maybe that's the part, and we were going to do it gavel to gavel here and to follow it. Maybe
Right.
that's the part for many that's most disappointing, is that had there been a trial, we would have learned many more of the facts. It would have been much more scrutiny on the video and other elements to
That's
the
right.
case, one way or the other, however it plays out, and now we'll never know that stuff. So we'll take a break on that note. I think, Reverend Fuzz, you started some things. Several people have called in. If you have a thought on the Delkey decision, glad to hear from you. Ken, Linda, Mary, Linda, Stu Lindas, and Joe. We'll get to you and more with the Vice Mayor right after this.